Hello guys, welcome to the Esports for Everyone channel. My name is Rallo, and today I'm bringing you a complete guide on how to breed planets and basically how do planets work, right? So first of all, we have to understand that planets can be divided into two big categories, okay? By class or type of planet. There are three different classes: Wisdom, Fate, and Fury. Each of them have a different skill tree with the same passive perks but different abilities. But wait, do keep in mind that in this particular moment we can only play Wisdom. So if you happen to buy or have a Fury or Fate planet, their abilities will be mapped into the Wisdom class. So let me show you an example. This planet has Fury cards, but we cannot play them until the cards are actually released in-game, as we can see here. If we press the View Season 3 Avatar yellow button, and here we could see how would the mapping work. Okay, back to the type of planet. As some of you may know, there are 4 elements in Apeiron: Earth, Water, Fire, and Air. Pure planets of these elements are called Gigas, Leviathan, Inferno, and Tempest, respectively. After the pure planets, we have different combinations of them: duos, trees, and quads. Duos, for example, have 2 elements. A karst will only have air and earth as birth elements. A tri would be missing 1. For example, a wasteland will have no water. Mountainous type planets have no air. Foresties have no fire. And oases have absolutely no earth. So moving on to the next topic, we will open what I like to call the breeding simulator. With this calculator, you will be able to understand what percentages of elements and what planet class you will get after breeding 2 planets. Keep in mind, to achieve this, we will need the ID of the 2 parents and their parents as well, which would make a total of 6 planets. Here, we have a core planet as an example. This one will take 21 days because his grandparents are basically cousins. We will dive a little more into that later. As you can see, as soon as a planet is bred, we can see the percentages it has, but not the card until it gets hatched. That will reveal itself after hatching it in 1 week. So, to understand how this element percentage is calculated, we need to input the elements of both parents plus the percentage of the elements from their grandparents as well. So I will add the percentages real quick so we can check how to do it. So we change everything to 0. Okay, so the first one would be 25 water, 75 air, and we're gonna complete the rest. And okay, so once we input all the data, we can see the expected percentage the kit will have with a 1% element difference due to average calculations, right? And we can also see the class. So this theoretically would be a dual delta with 36 and 64. In this case, we have 37 and 63 is a 1% difference. So now we will talk about what the weight means, okay? What is the weight? Well, it's basically the ratio that every parent or grandparent will affect the outcome of the final breed. Basically, each parent will give us 30% of the weight in the element percentage calculation, whereas the grandparent affects only 10%. But if your parent is an exordium, this would change to 50% and the grandparent value would change to 0, since exordiums were only minted but not bred. So this would be how it looks: 50% from the parent and 0% from their grandparents, since it was minted and it has no grandparent. So let me move these values back to where they were. Okay, cool. So moving on to cards and perks. We want to know the percentages of getting these as well, right? We're going to check both parents and add these cards and perks to this part of the Excel. If I check the first parent, I can see air C3, air C4, and water C1. And we're going to write this here exactly the way I have it. Air C3, air C4, water C1, and now we move on to the perk. Fire P5 and water P7. Now I'm going to write this here. FP5, okay, and this one is water P7, right? Yeah. Perfect. And in the other planets, we have AC5, AC6, EC5, and then air P7 and water P2, right? Okay, water P2 and air P7. Okay, and these two planets are fates, so we don't need to change this like right now. We will get back to this after we understand the outcome of the cards first. Okay, so how does this work? From this pool of abilities, we will get 3 random. But if we have the same card or perk twice, that will increase the chance of getting it, right? When we breed it. So the same thing will happen with passives. And also keep in mind, in every breed, there's a 10% chance you mutate a card or passive. So this can be good and it can also be really bad, right? So keep in mind that there's that mutation percentage. But this happens only when you breed 2 planets of the same class, which we highly recommend, because what happens if we breed 2 planets of different classes, it's pretty interesting. So let's say we write wisdom here. What happened? Well, as you can see, planet B, this would be the planet at the right side when you breed. It has no skill cards, basically. It acts as if it had one big card named empty slot. The pool basically turns into a 75% chance of getting an empty skill slot, which would result in 11 skill points lost for our planet, and a problem for the potential breed that planet can have, right? So be careful when you breed, and if you crossbreed, understand why you would want that. Maybe you want to prioritize some cards, maybe you want to flip, but, it might get risky. So remember that each ability from a planet gives you 11 points for that element, and each perk gives you 5 points. So that's a way you can understand how many points you're gaining or losing and how many real points your planet has. The last thing we're going to talk about today is primeval legacies. And what is a primeval legacy and how does it work? So primevals are basically a breeding perk that 10% of the minted planets could get randomly, right? It guarantees that your breeds will get a certain percentage in one or more elements. For example, this one is called floating lands. It guarantees your kids to have 75% air only if their dominant element value is air, exactly as you can see here. So how do we breed it correctly? Well, all you need to do is check the math in this sheet and check if your dominant element value is corresponding to the dominant element value from the primeval legacy, right? And then you're good to go. There's one extra thing I didn't tell you about, is that you have a 10% chance of hitting the primeval legacy your parent or grandparent has. And of course, this is not the only primeval legacy you can get. There are many. So do check the marketplace for a lot of interesting planets. But yeah, that would improve your farm because your purity will remain high and that extra 10% really helps. That's all for this video. I hope you liked it as much as I do. I think it's very interesting and I'm looking forward to reading your comments down below. See you next time. non-stop delivery. You know how we do.